Well, it's only fitting for my husband and our son to take over the company. Our daughter is just a nuisance. If it's a man, he can take over the company and sit comfortably in the seat of the president's wife. So, is that because our daughter is considered a hindrance? Both of our grandchildren are surely precious to me. The treatment my daughter-in-law receives is absolutely unacceptable, and I cannot entrust the company to such a person. It seems like there's some misunderstanding, so it looks like I'll have to set things straight. I'm Doris, an 80-year-old homemaker who has been in charge of the accounting for the company my husband manages for many years. I met my husband through a matchmaking arrangement, but he used to be just an ordinary office worker. His hard work for the company was reminiscent of a dedicated worker, always coming home still preoccupied with work even after the workday was over. I watched him at home, worrying about things like what ideas would be good for the next project or how to arrange things when visiting a client, and I couldn't help but feel like I wanted to support him as a wife. The company started as a hobby for the former president, dealing with imported goods, but my husband was in charge of both sales and administrative work there. After all, there was always a shortage of manpower in a small, privately owned company. From morning till night, my husband was constantly busy, running around here and there, and even after coming home, he still had to do administrative work. My husband was always busy from morning till night, constantly going here and there, doing administrative work after coming home. With such a busy schedule between work and home, he often mentioned that there never seemed to be a perfect timing for marriage. It was during one of these discussions that the topic of a matchmaking arrangement with me came up. When I met my husband, I was impressed by his sincerity and straightforwardness. His good nature was evident from his words and actions, and I felt that he was someone who was diligent in his work and would always cherish what was important to him. Believing in my intuition, I started dating him after that matchmaking meeting, which eventually led to marriage. For a while after getting married, he continued to work as an ordinary office worker, going to work early in the morning and working late into the night. Although I understood that he enjoyed his work and that there was a shortage of manpower, being newly married, I couldn't help but feel a bit lonely. However, an event occurred that quickly dispelled that loneliness. To my surprise, my husband was chosen as the next president of the company he worked for. Why would my husband, just an ordinary office worker who recently got married, suddenly become the president? I was surprised, but my husband seemed even more surprised and flustered than I was. Despite our concerns and his confusion, the president quickly completed the minimal handover and stepped down from his position. I later learned that the president had been in poor health and it wouldn't have been surprising for him to retire at any time. Furthermore, being dedicated to his work and with no spouse or children, he felt it would be a shame to let go of the company he had built and cherished. So, it was my husband who was chosen to take over by the arrow of trust. Despite lacking experience in management, he suddenly became president due to his seriousness, honesty, competence in his work, and the trust of his clients. Although I had been a housewife since we got married, I took on administrative and accounting duties to support my husband as much as possible in his unfamiliar role of running the company. Although both administrative and accounting tasks were completely new to me and I had no experience, I threw myself into the work with the desire to support my husband in any way I could. With just a word from the former president, we found ourselves inheriting the company, and although we faced many challenges as inexperienced newcomers, we pushed through with the determination that there was no choice but to do so. While managing the company, we were blessed with children, and we can say that those were fulfilling days. Before we knew it, we had grown considerably older while immersed in our work. I am 80 years old, and my husband is 78. Many people have retired and are enjoying their leisurely days. However, thanks to my husband's efforts and the trust of our customers, our company has grown significantly larger than when we took it over, which we are grateful for. From a small, individually owned business to a well-known major corporation in the area, we have been able to expand greatly. Even though we have come this far with our strength and perseverance over the years, we are beginning to realize the importance of generational change. This company, which we have nurtured so carefully, cannot simply have anyone as a successor. Like the former president entrusted the company to my husband, my husband, and I also want to entrust this nurtured company to someone capable and trustworthy. Typically, in such cases, it's common for one's own children to take over. Fortunately, my husband and I have a son, and our son has been blessed with children as well. If we were to entrust the company to our son, it would expand our options for future successors. We've been considering such possibilities. However, this is just a discussion of possibilities for us as a couple, and it's not necessarily about insisting on our son taking over at all costs. First and foremost, we've always tried to avoid excessive interference in our son's life. Both of them are independent individuals. Moreover, since they're married and have their own families, they might find it bothersome if their in-laws were too intrusive. Having struggled with mother-in-law and daughter-in-law issues in my youth, I strongly felt that I didn't want to impose such feelings on my eldest son and his wife. While we don't have a bad relationship with our eldest son, things changed after we received news of the birth of a child in their family. We were told by our eldest son's wife, "I'm busy with childcare, so please don't contact us." So, we decided to simply watch over them without reaching out. Then, one day in December, we received a sudden invitation from our eldest son's wife. "This New Year's Eve, we'd like you and Dad to come over and spend some quality time at our place. There's also some news to share, so let's relax and chat together." It wasn't often that we received invitations like this from our eldest son's wife, so we were surprised but didn't feel bad about it. We hadn't had much time to relax lately due to work, so since we received the invitation, we thought it would be a good opportunity to unwind and enjoy some leisurely conversation. "We'll be there. Thank you for the invitation for New Year's Eve." "No problem at all. We've been quite busy ourselves, so sorry for the sudden invitation." When we arrived at our eldest son's home, we noticed that the walls were adorned with various symptoms and photos of children, but something puzzled us. We distinctly remembered seeing the name of a girl in a Christmas card or something similar about 20 years ago, but there was nothing related to a girl anywhere to be found. Upon reflection, we realized that we had only had minimal interaction with our eldest son's family until now. Before they had children, we used to occasionally have tea together or visit them, but after we heard about the birth of their child, those interactions ceased abruptly. I refrained from actively reaching out to my eldest son's family, thinking that they must be struggling with the unfamiliar task of raising children. In the beginning, I did ask a few times if they needed help, but my eldest son's wife firmly declined each time. She yelled over the phone, "This child can't do without me. We don't need your help, so please don't call again." Since then, I felt sorry and stopped contacting them. That's why I was happy to receive the invitation from my eldest son's family this time, but there's a sense of unease about the invitation and the things in their house. After not seeing each other for many years, it felt strange that the only things displayed in their house were certificates and trophies with Sean written on them. And all my eldest son's wife talks about is bragging about this person named Sean. Since she's referring to him as Sean, it must be a boy. While serving tea, she goes on and on about her pride and joy, and as we drink, she starts showing off albums out of nowhere. I might be remembering wrong, but I could have sworn I heard that a girl was born. Is it possible that a boy was born after that girl? Upon hearing that, my eldest son's wife momentarily frowned and bitterly remarked, "Oh, the girl, Ellie? Unlike Sean, that child is really incompetent and has never even received a single prize. But Ellie must have some good qualities too. Although I haven't met her many times. In that regard, Sean is really talented unlike someone, so I want to give him the best education possible for his future." The words coming from my eldest son's wife about her daughter were all sharp and critical. I've heard that women tend to be strict towards their own gender, but even so, her evaluations of her son and daughter are completely opposite. Since I've only seen them in photos, I can't say more, but somehow, listening to her made me feel uncomfortable. However, I didn't want the atmosphere to sour right after arriving at my eldest son's family's house, so I listened to her boasting while nodding along casually. That evening, to celebrate our reunion after a long time, my eldest son's family treated us to sushi. Next to the obviously high-class deli and desserts was a large bottle of sake. Sake goes well with sushi, but a large bottle for just 4 adults seemed excessive. My eldest son shouldn't drink that much, but I thought his wife might be a fan of sake, so I asked to confirm. Japanese sake that pairs well with sushi, right? Is this from a famous brewery here? Hillary, you seem to have a taste for sake. It's not so much about having a taste for sake, but I wanted you and your husband to enjoy it. It's a special sake just for you, she said as she forcefully handed us the sake cups. As we progressed through the sushi and sake, my eldest son's wife suddenly spoke up. The house you and your husband are living in now is quite impressive. Must have been quite expensive, wasn't it? She asked us, but my husband skillfully dodged the question. Well, I don't think it's worth that much, but how much was it? It's been quite a while, so I've forgotten. Not getting the answer she expected, my eldest son's wife's face briefly turned stern, but she quickly regained her composure and poured sake for us. From there, she began probing into the details of our assets and property value, seemingly waiting for us to accidentally reveal the value while under the influence of sake. Her persistent questioning started to make me feel uncomfortable. Glancing over, I noticed that the large bottle of sake was nearly empty, with only a small amount left. I hate to brag, but I can handle my booze pretty well. Back in the day, I could down a whole bottle of sake by myself, but I'm older now. For the sake of my health, I've been cutting back on drinking lately, so I figured it's time to call it quits. Sorry, Hillary. Thanks for the offer, but I think I'm ready to hit the hay. There's always tomorrow, right? What about you? Yeah, you're right. I think I'll call it a night too. Oh, I remembered I wanted to pick something up from the nearby convenience store. I'll grab it before calling it a night. Just as we were getting up from the table after finishing our meal and heading towards the door, I heard my eldest son's wife mutter something from behind, like, we were so close. She must have some reason for pushing so hard to pry information about the company and our assets, even resorting to getting us tipsy. As I was getting ready to hit the sack, my husband, who was supposed to go to the store, quietly took my hand and led me aside. Following him, I saw a figure on the balcony. I was about to let out a gasp, but upon closer inspection, it was a young woman intensely eating bread. Eating bread on the balcony? It seemed odd. But upon closer look, she bore some resemblance to my eldest son's wife. She must be the daughter they were talking about, the one they said wasn't doing well. Still, why would she be sneaking around eating bread like that in the middle of the night? You're my granddaughter, right? Ellie, isn't it? What are you doing eating bread alone at this late hour? Oh, it's nothing. I'm just not feeling it. She asked me for this month's living expenses, but I'm too tired to deal with it, so I'm going to bed. She was probably told to put some of her earnings from work towards living expenses, but from the looks of it, it seemed like a substantial amount. It must be tough for a girl her age to earn this much and manage it all at home. She fell silent, fiddling with the bank envelope, but there was an unmistakable tension in her expression. Ignoring us, my granddaughter headed into the back room. She must have been careless with how she closed the door, as we could see inside. It seemed she had crawled into the closet. Without even taking out the blanket, she crawled into the closet and fell asleep there. Upon closer inspection, it seemed to be a cluttered storage room, with golf clubs, kitchen appliances, old furniture, and what looked like broken bags strewn about. It's hard to imagine a 20-year-old granddaughter playing golf or having a hobby of collecting old furniture, so she must be using the storage room as her bedroom. When we visited, my eldest son's wife only boasted about her son. She talked about his talent, intelligence, and how much money she was investing in his potential, but it's hard to believe that her eldest daughter is being treated like this. My husband also seemed stunned, unable to believe what was happening right in front of him. No matter what, the way they treated their own children was unacceptable, especially the condescending attitude towards our granddaughter. My husband must have had some thoughts of his own. After a while, he seemed to ponder for a bit before retreating to the bedroom. Later, it became clear what my husband had been pondering, and my son and his wife would realize the seriousness of what they had done. In the middle of the night, I woke up with an unfamiliar pillow. Looking at the clock, it was 2 a.m., but I could hear voices coming from somewhere. At first, I thought it might be an argument, but it seemed to be one-sided, with someone accusing the other. After listening for a while, I realized it was my daughter-in-law and the granddaughter we had just met earlier. Apparently, she was upset that her granddaughter had met us earlier. "Why are you talking to those old hags? And you're not supposed to be in this house, yet you're causing trouble," I could hear her saying. Putting aside being called an old hag behind my back, what did she mean by her granddaughter not supposed to be in this house? The one-sided scolding from my daughter-in-law continued until just before sunrise. It was heartbreaking to listen to her snide remarks all night. And finally, the sun rose, and it was morning. In this situation, I couldn't help but worry that our granddaughter might be sleep-deprived. Unaware that my husband and I had been listening to the one-sided scolding directed at our granddaughter, my son and his wife approached us with innocent faces. "Good morning." "Hey, Dad, are you starting to think about the next generation of the company?" "Well, yeah. It's a precious company that I've inherited from the previous president and nurtured to this point. I'm considering entrusting it to someone with a promising future." At that moment, I couldn't miss the suppressed smile on my son's wife's face. "That's right. It's a company you've worked hard to protect and nurture. You want to entrust it to someone who will cherish both the company and the people who work there." "Yeah, exactly. Because we want it to continue for even longer, we're looking for someone with a promising future who can value the people they work with." My son and his wife nodded vigorously, then suddenly launched into a presentation. "After all, Dad and Mom are getting older, and we don't want them to push themselves too hard. I've also been studying management in between work, so even though I'm not exactly like Dad, I should be able to run the company. And, let's not forget, we have our pride and joy, our son Sean, so we're stable for at least the next 2 generations. You know, carrying the backbone of the company is a job for a man, after all." It was as if my son and his wife were speaking as if it had already been decided that they would inherit the company. Neither my husband nor I had ever mentioned handing over the company to our son and his wife, but it seemed that in their minds, they were already living as the president and first lady of the company, having taken it over. My husband intervened with a conciliatory tone. "Well, when the time comes, we'll have a formal discussion about it. It's about the future of the company, so even though we're family, it's a bit informal to rely on verbal agreements like this." "Yeah, that's true. I got a bit carried away, looking forward to the day when you and Sean will shine at the company." Without a doubt, they seemed to think they were going to inherit the company, but we had clearly communicated who would be suitable to take over the company. I wonder how they will react when they learn the truth about the future of the company. Later on, I contacted my son and his wife and asked them to come to our home. Considering that there had often been no response despite previous attempts to contact them, their enthusiastic agreement to come to our home was quite a change from before. Their excitement could be easily heard over the phone. "Thank you for contacting us, mother-in-law. Is this about the matter we discussed earlier? It's a significant day for our family, so should we come in formal attire?" "No need to be formal. Just come as usual. We'll be waiting for you." The promised day arrived. The eldest son and his wife came to our home, but as soon as they arrived, they started causing a commotion. "Hey, Mom, what's this all about? What's going on?" "Mother-in-law, this joke has gone too far. There's nothing here." It would be appropriate to say that it was the place where our home used to be. Our home had already been demolished and turned into an empty lot. Of course, we hadn't informed the eldest son and his wife about the demolition yet, so they seemed quite shocked. "We talked about me inheriting the company and the house, right? This isn't what we agreed on. Why isn't there a house? Did we promise you would inherit the company and the house? Did we say we'd hand them over to you? When did we have that conversation?" When I explained this, the eldest son and his wife seemed to tremble with anger. However, as if struck by a sudden thought, the expression on their faces changed, and the eldest daughter-in-law approached us. "I see. You had the home demolished and turned it into an empty lot, and then you prepared for us to build the house we like, right? We've been wanting to fill our new home with our own preferences, so we appreciate it. Yes, it's a once-in-a-lifetime purchase, after all. It's important to cherish your own preferences. Perhaps feeling encouraged by this, the eldest daughter-in-law approached us with her true intentions, which were quite transparently focused on inheritance. It seems they are still interpreting things in a way that suits them, but it's time for us to confront reality. We can't just accept such a splendid piece of land for free from you, dear father and mother-in-law. How about letting us help out with things around the house in the future? Since we're family, I think we can lend a hand. After all, I'm a full-time housewife. That sounds good. Hillary, if you don't mind helping out, could you take care of this paperwork? I handed a sheet of paper to the eldest son and his wife. What's this? Renouncing inheritance? Forfeiting inheritance? What does this mean? It means exactly what it says. You don't have the ability or the character to take over the company. That's all. When I made it clear, the eldest son and his wife turned red-faced and seemed about to lunge at us. What do you mean by that? My husband Bill has been studying business management and sales on his own while working at his current job. And besides, with our talented Sean, our future will be secure if he takes over the company. Don't you understand yet? Being at the top of a company requires more than just knowledge. And society isn't so lenient as to let someone become the boss just because they're a man. In fact, for the past few years, our eldest son had occasionally visited our home, expressing his desire to learn about management while helping out. Although it was irregular, my husband seemed pleased whenever our son offered to help, but it turned out he wasn't actually studying business seriously. First of all, Bill, you've been visiting the company under the guise of wanting to learn about business management and help out, but your real intention was to get your hands on the company's money, wasn't it? Mom, what are you talking about? That's a terrible accusation. Do you think I've been managing the books for all these years for nothing? Numbers don't lie. I've known for a while that you've been secretly using the company's money. Even after saying all this, they still seem to think they can deceive us, wearing a nonchalant expression. Come on, the numbers don't add up. Even if I did get my hands on that money, what would I do with it? Tammy, it seems to be the name of the woman you were involved with at the club. Weren't you trying to date this Tammy person, promising to make her the company president's wife because you thought you'd become the president in the future? The timing and amount of the money spent align almost perfectly with the period and amount of embezzlement from the company. When I relayed the information from my husband's acquaintance, our son turned pale. What's that supposed to mean? Privacy is still a thing, isn't it? What's the problem? Teehee, problem is everything. Using the company's money for club visits and cheating. What does that say about your character? Is that fitting for someone in a leadership position? Don't make me laugh. The revelation of the infidelity must have hit hard. Beside our eldest son, his wife turned beet red and trembled. However, she seems to be the type who won't stay down even after falling. I never thought you'd be the kind of person to cheat and embezzle money from your father-in-law's company. It's over. But Sean, who inherits your father's blood, is different. He's talented, so although it won't be immediate, he will be the one to bear the company's burden in the future. So wait until then. The eldest son's wife seems to believe blindly that her son can do no wrong. She mutters to herself about the names of competitions and awards he's won as if they're proof of his excellence. That's right, your pride and joy, Sean, was over at our place playing. Did you know? Well, he mentioned going to see Grandma a few times before. What about it? You're his mother, and yet you seem to have no clue what your own son is up to? Take a look at this. I said, showing her the screen of a flea market app. All these brooches, necklaces, and watches listed here are mine. I've been missing them ever since Sean started coming over to our house to play. What are you talking about? Stop making false accusations. Where's the proof that Sean is involved with this flea market site? A generic icon and a harmless bio indeed make it seem like I'm just harassing her and her grandson for no reason. But I have solid proof. Look at this bag listed for sale. See this scratch and this logo? Don't they remind you of the album Sean showed at our house? Do you recognize it? Faced with her husband and son's misdemeanors, the eldest son's wife trembled. Yet, I couldn't just let this go. Even though he's family, this is a crime. I could go to the police, but if you're willing to return everything properly, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. What will it be? I haven't embezzled any company money. He insists, planning to deny everything. He probably thinks I won't actually go to the police because we're family. All right then. If that's your final answer, it's too late for regrets. Finally, my husband spoke up. I've been silent until now, but I can't stand the way you're raising one grandson to be shown off while mistreating the other. It's unacceptable. Both are my beloved grandsons, and treating them so differently is just wrong. To run a company, you need to be a person who can be trusted by everyone, or it'll easily fail. Harsh treatment? I was just trying to raise a suitable successor for your company. That's nonsense. Raising a successor? You're just mistreating a child. Later, we reported our eldest son's embezzlement to the police. A week later, the police began investigating the eldest son and his wife, and his wrongdoing came to light. With ongoing investigations, their house was frequently visited by police officers, becoming the talk of the neighborhood. Meanwhile, their son, who had always been bragged about as the future heir, became an unwelcome presence both at school and in the neighborhood. The scandal made it clear that his previously flaunted status had pushed people away. Having flaunted his status as the heir apparent, the scandal caused people to distance themselves from him all at once. No one was willing to lend a hand to them, as they were left to deal with the aftermath of their greed and vanity. Meanwhile, we sold our land to move into an independent living facility for seniors, enjoying the company of peers our own age. Having some financial leeway even after moving into the senior living facility. We decided to support our granddaughter in living on his own, who had been sleeping in a closet and was not allowed to move out or have her own life because of the family's financial needs. We hope this will be an opportunity for him to become independent from the eldest son's family and to spread her wings. Though it was an unexpected turn of events, she seems to see us as benefactors who helped her get her life back on track. We've become so close that she occasionally visits us at the senior living facility. Moving forward, my husband and I want to live peacefully, not swayed by money or superficial emotions.